What's going on, everybody? Here we are with today's question. This one says, Vinny, I'm really trying to reduce my session time and I'm stuck. It's taking me over 45 minutes to get through my pre-talk sometimes, and I have my clients interrupting me during it. Oh, yeah. After that, I got to get through the rest of my protocol, and I've had clients complain it's taking me over 2 hours to get a session over with them. What do I need to do to make my sessions go quicker? Sometimes they're even still smoking afterward, and I'm stuck. Okay, this is great because actually, when I'm working as a practitioner, my niche is smoking cessation too. And one of the things that might surprise you about this is that I haven't done a pre-talk in over 3 years. It's a huge time saver. I'll talk to you about that in a moment. But the first thing I want to point out here is, I think it's really cool you're valuing speed and time because, like, clients want to do things quicker. They want to do things easier. I think that's very valuable for them. It's valuable for you. It's a big market differentiator, right? Like if you can see a person one time, my smoking cessation sessions are 30, 35 minutes. I've had them in 21, 22 minutes before. So it's huge, right? Folks, their mind's blown how quick, things happen, especially because a lot of times they're experiencing time distortion anyway, so they're really blown away by it. But yeah, here's the thing. So circling back to the pre-talk stuff, I'm going to talk a little bit about working organically, then I want to come up with some practical things you could start to do with how you're working right now. Some of the things about working organically, when you're doing a smoking cessation session and you're using a pre-talk, one of the things that kind of got me stuck is that I'm spending all this time with almost like trying to predict all the different things that could go wrong for that client in terms of quitting smoking. And again, that's just the symptom. That's not the real problem. So you're trying to think of all the different areas in their life where they might have a problem, or maybe you're asking them, okay, where do you typically smoke? And then you're trying to formulate things based off of that. Again, this is all symptom. So it does make sense if you haven't solved the real problem. Something goes wrong in their life a few months later, yeah, they probably go back to smoking. That does not surprise me based off my experience. The reality that when I'm doing these fast sessions, though, when I'm working organically with people, we barely even talk about smoking. It's really irrelevant, right? It's like we want to fix what's going on around the problem, and then when we test it, it's like they just don't want a cigarette anymore. So I think that's really important to consider. There's too much to get through. Yeah. With the way you're working now, perhaps you could record some stuff. Perhaps you could have them do some homework prior to the session. The problem with that, of course, is like, did they really pay attention and watch the video of you giving a pre-talk, for instance, right? A lot of hypnotists do that type of thing. Maybe, right? Like, I hope so. They might be thinking they're gonna walk in and you're gonna snap your fingers and they're gonna quit smoking. So it's just some things to be mindful of. So maybe you could start to think in terms of what can I automate, what can I record ahead of time that's not going to require me to convey to them. If you're comfortable working in that way, you could save time there. But the reality is there's the time you're saving in that session, but then there's the time you're saving with having fewer follow-up sessions. So if you can really get to the real problem and solve it, it's like this stuff just goes away. And when I used to have those long pre-talks, I was operating off of an assumption that that's what was necessary. That's actually what would set up the entire, the rest of the session, right? If I nail the pre-talk, everything else would be okay. I remember thinking that way. However, I kind of mentioned how that's just the symptom. We're putting so much focus on what happens prior to the hypnosis, right? What about an after talk? All right, have you ever considered that? Like explaining to a client that there's a range of emotions they may experience. They might have all kinds of thoughts come to mind, insights, but some of the stuff might be kind of sad. And just letting them know that their job is to not judge that and just to experience it, right? Because it's their mind basically healing this problem. So we tore out the real problem. And this is sort of a big part of the way I work, right? I explain to them that when you leave here today, whatever you experience is what you experience. I want you to engage that honestly, and I want you just to experience it fully without judgment, right? It's a part of you. Presumably, their unconscious mind is trying to teach them something. So, this sort of like almost like an aftertalk, if you want to call it that, incredibly important. And now what happens when that person goes out into the real world and they feel a little off one day? Like, well, that's just my mind healing, right? We can start to leverage that versus, I'm going to snap my fingers and you're going to be fixed forever, right? This type of thing. That's great when it works, and I've seen that work, and I've had that work. I can't say that's a high success rate. And the folks that claim to have high success rates with that approach, you just look at how they measure success, and it's almost always like a money back guarantee approach. Like Alan Carr, if you look at, they claim a 95% success rate, but it's based off a 90-day money back guarantee, right? No scientist would do that. You have to actually call the people and see if they quit, right? That's a completely different thing, because smokers won't tell you. They'll just feel guilty and think it's impossible, and they'll go into this whole pit of despair. So the sort of magic bullet approach, it's beautiful when it works. It's so cool. But there again, are we empowering the client, or are we empowering the protocol or the method, right? To maximally empower the client, the protocol and the method doesn't matter. Right? They've got to discover things about themselves in relationship to this problem, and they've got to develop a new understanding of the problem. And as they do that, they start to get choice back. So again, this is the more organic way of working. So just to separate the two, I think I've kind of summarized that approach. I don't want to go into that too much because I don't know how practical that is for you right now. But what can you automate? And what can you record? How can you get them to have experiences prior to seeing you? That's what I would say to focus on if you're gonna work that way. If you want to learn more about how I work with clients, that's always an option for you. You just look at my content. I've got links up everywhere for that. I hope this helps. And you're doing great, though. This is why I always say clients are our most important teachers, right? You have these experiences and these frustrations. Things aren't going as smoothly as you want to. This is where you have ample opportunity to learn. And I think you've always got a couple different options in front of you, right? You can kind of go down that track on this side, right? And it's like, okay, do I need to accumulate more trainings, more knowledge, etc.? Do I need to get better and develop a richness and understanding what I already know? Okay, like go deeper with what you already know. Do I need to kind of troubleshoot it? And like we talked about before, like other things that I can automate prior to people coming in to see me? Or do you want to learn, I don't do any of those traditional things, right? I don't use technique suggestions, deepeners, all that's up on Facebook. I literally just work with that client, and I just keep that client in mind. So that's like kind of a major pivot, but that's something that's there too, right? So you've got a couple different things, and this journey that's in front of you that you're walking now, it's like you're going to kind of oscillate back and forth as you tinker and learn and get more experience, right? That's what's going to make you a world-class practitioner over anything else. So I know it's tough when things aren't going well, but this is literally an opportunity for you to become an expert at this stuff. There's no other way to do it, right? It's not, right? You know what I mean? This is it, right? Getting real practical experience. I know it doesn't always make it feel better, but absolutely, this is the path to mastery, and you're on it. So yeah, I hope that helps. If you need a follow-up question, you want me to elaborate on something, fire away. I'd love to hear from you. Take care.